The James Show Podcast.
And as the great Mike Trina joked a minute ago, so what are you going to talk about today? Gardening tips? Yeah, that tip has gotten really out of control, hasn't it, guys? Now, of course, the top story of the day, Trump bombs Iran. Iran missiles back. They fired some missiles back. The reports are pretty dismal if you're an Iranian or if you're an Ayatollah. But I think you got a great summary there in the news report. I'm going to just keep sprinkling in a little bit more detail because I have a little bit more time with you here. Welcome to the James Show, by the way. So in Qatar, Al Udeid got hit in Kuwait, Ali Sal Salim base. In Iraq, Al Assad base. In United Arab Emirates, the Al Dhafra base. And in Syria, the Al Tanf garrison. Now, do you know all of your Middle Eastern, Persian, Gulf region bases? That's okay. I don't either. But we've been looking a lot of stuff up together. And most importantly, really Trump's speech when this all went down. He came out on Saturday, gave some brief words, and then he'd let it cook for all of Sunday. He wasn't out there. You know who's on the Sunday shows? You know who's giving interviews? J.D. Vance. So now he's back today, and even after we've had a good 48 or so hours to digest what all's happened, starting with the U.S. bombing Iranian nuclear sites, the most important part is still what he said in those first statements right after it happened. First off, of course, he's going to say it was a success.
Tonight, I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace. If they do not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier.
So the results of this could be placed on a spectrum. Best case scenario, I think now that we had American planes dropping American ordnance on Iranian targets, I think now we're our best analog or our best hope would be for something like the Gaddafi situation, where he didn't step down, but he stopped funding terrorism after that. He wasn't running around chanting death to America. He wasn't funding other people doing terrorist things. And so the close proximity to the Iranian situation, the comparison would be maybe the Ayatollahs realized we could stay in power. We just have to stop funding Hezbollah and stop funding Hamas and stop funding the Houthi rebels and basically everyone that's in a thorn in our side in the region. They got to stop that. They're not going to be blocking the Straits of Hormuz. They're not going to be kidnapping our guy. I was just going through my Iranian archives earlier today. You remember when we had some hikers, some college students decide, hey, we're just going to hike in the mountains outside of Tehran. And the police found them, Americans, what are you doing here? They're like, we have our passports. And so they basically got taken hostage and they had to read like the hostage statement. They're like, the Iranians have been very good to us. We were wrong to illegally invade their country. We apologize. And by the good graces of the Ayatollahs. So they had to read the hostage statement. They did that with our sailors a couple times, which was really weird. So maybe they might just stop doing that. Worst case scenario, I think, is in Afghanistan, where we do end up toppling the regime, but we have to sit there and prop it up with our lives and treasure. And it wasn't like back-breaking treasure, but every family that lost a life, it was all for naught when you just give it back to the same people who you took it from in the first place. I think that's the worst case scenario. I don't think it's going to be that bad. I don't think it's going to be as good as the Gaddafi scenario, where all of a sudden, they just like a light, all hostility ceased. There's no more missiles or bombs going back and forth. And we have a guy who used to support terror, no longer supporting terror, just keeping his own little fiefdom, his little oil fiefdom, and minding his own business from there on out. I am more toward the Gaddafi side than the Afghanistan side. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. Trump also in that same speech gave the reasoning behind doing the strike.
For 40 years, Iran has been saying death to America, death to Israel. They have been killing our people, blowing off their arms, blowing off their legs with roadside bombs. That was their specialty. We lost over 1,000 people, and hundreds of thousands throughout the Middle East and around the world have died as a direct result of their hate. In particular, so many were killed by their general, Qasem Soleimani. I decided a long time ago that I would not let this happen. It will not continue.
So then the next cut I thought might be the one that you hear a year from now, maybe 5 years from now, is what might be the Trump doctrine. You know, the Theodore Roosevelt speak softly but carry a big stick. I like this Trump one of, hey, now's the time for peace or we're going to keep bombing you.
With all of that being said, this cannot continue. There will be either peace or there will be tragedy for Iran far greater than we have witnessed over the last 8 days. Remember, there are many targets left.
The bombings will continue until morale improves. The U.S. bombed 3 Iranian nuclear sites over the weekend. And right before the James Show started, Iran had launched missiles at, I think, 5 military bases in the region. To give you a little more detail on that is my first guest, David Hamilton, National Security Economics Center. Welcome back, sir. And do I have my numbers correct so far?
Yes, sir. You're batting 1,000.
All right, so tell me, this looks a lot like, and I'm just going to go right into baseless speculation if you don't mind, David. This looks like what happened in 2020. Trump killed Soleimani in retaliation for some other Iranian flare-up, and they did an attack that looked like they tipped us off. They're like, listen, we're going to fire some missiles at this base at some certain time. We don't want anything bad to happen. So if you could just intercept them and, you know, make the explosion look big so we can tell everyone in our media that we just won a war, that would be great. And I don't know if that's the official story, but that's certainly what it looks like happened in 2020 and then maybe today.
Yeah, that's probably not too far-fetched. I mean, they had to do something. Their regime, was sort of required that they have some sort of response, even though I think you and I might agree that they sort of started this whole thing with the desire to have nuclear weapons and the likelihood they might use them. So none of their weapons reached our targets in Qatar or other places, or Qatar, depending on how you want to say it. And I'm not sure if that was by design or they're just not good at it, and we're really good at protecting our own. So it could be a combination of those things. They may have tipped us off. They may have not wanted to really do a lot of damage because they want to be able to say, hey, we retaliated, you retaliated, now let's stop. And I hope they did that. To think that they would think that way with an eye towards finding some way to de-escalate this it would be heartening.
Well, they would have to, you would think, because they can't win. And so I'm seeing that we may very well have another 2020. Now, what I would really like the outcome to look more like is Gaddafi in the 80s when he used to fund terrorism and he got the Pan Am Flight 103 or whatever bombed over Lockerbie, Scotland. A lot of people remember that. And then after we bombed the snot out of him, or Ronald Reagan bombed the snot out of him, he got to stay in power, but he kind of backed off all that Death to America stuff and funding terrorism. And I think that might be a possible outcome, but just in the Iranian flavor.
Yeah, it's different when you bomb somebody's own palace and their all elite female guard gets blown up, right? And some of his family members. So that did change his tenor a little bit. And I think this did too. And I think that it's inescapable, no matter what your theocracy may want to believe. They're not hitting us and we're hitting them. The Israelis are hitting them. Some of their weapons get through the Iron Dome. I don't think any of their weapons can get through to us. And I think they recognize that. So they have to put on a show. And then hopefully we will go back to the idea of, yeah, you probably, if we gave them an out, I mean, we do need to let them save face in some form or fashion and say, or some sort of economic deal, you will agree to give up your efforts to pursue fissionable materials. I mean, this idea that they're not trying to build a bomb has driven me crazy for some time. Anything above 5% is more than you need for nuclear energy. When you're at 70, 80, 90% purity, you're building a bomb. And for Medvedev to say, hey, well, maybe we should be giving them a bomb. I guess you're saying that their entire pursuit has always been to create a bomb. You're admitting that they were trying to build nuclear weapons, not for peaceful energy production in a country that has as much oil and gas as anybody on the planet. So they can't be allowed to have a bomb. They would use it. And we as a country and we as the rest of the free world need to say resolve behind that. You needed to had to do this sometime. You can pay me now or you can pay me later. It's a matter of when, not a matter of if. And they are getting close. No matter what anyone says, they are too close. And you don't want to drink that milk after the expiration date, right?
Ooh, that's a gross metaphor. We're talking with David Hamilton, National Security Economic Center at UNT here on the James Show. Any chance they'll block the Straits of Hormuz? I keep seeing that headline and that speculation flash, but if they tried it, they would just lose a bunch of ships.
Yeah, it needs to be someone else other than us doing that, and it would harm China. So China is not a net producer of energy. It needs oil and gas from the Middle East. It would get about 20-25% of their energy from there through the Straits of Hormuz, and this would be something that the Chinese would be very much against. So I think there's a lot of saber rattling that one could expect. I think they may make a faux attempt, like you're talking about, a feint, but to actually cut off the Straits of Hormuz would hurt them, and it would hurt the Chinese.
David Hamilton, what do you think about the concern over Iranian sleeper cells here in America might be activated and retaliate?
Yeah, that has always been an issue, and I'm heartened by the fact that we have been doing a much better job of securing our own borders and allowing our intelligence and law enforcement to do their job in finding these sleeper cells, et cetera. I think they are doing a fantastic job. We know who these people are, but it was made much more difficult by having an incredibly porous border. And now that 95%, 99% of that traffic, as well as traffic through ports of entry, have been managed like most countries manage it. I feel a lot better about that, but that is an issue, and it doesn't take much. Only one or two people with a little bit of money and brain power. Even Hinckley proved that anybody can get to anybody when he shot Reagan, right?
Yeah, well, another scary comparison there. David, what about these people who try and make the distinction? We are at war with Iran's nukes. Trump said this over the weekend. We're at war with Iran's nukes, not Iran's people. Do you think the people of Iran get that, or is that going to calcify them into some sort of anti-American stance?
No, I think a lot of them do. I don't think many of the people living there under those conditions support the regime. However, they have to publicly. There are large protests, which of course are supported and funded and organized by the regime. I'll be honest, I'm glad to hear him say that. I would have preferred him to say early on that this was an unfortunate thing, that we're very saddened to have to do it, but it was necessary, that the world cannot afford Iran with this particular regime to have these kinds of weapons. There was a certain amount of saber rattling, and we did a lot of high-fiving. I would have liked to have seen us and take a slightly different stance. Needed to happen, but it is a sad day. It is a bad day when we have to do this and we escalate this sort of thing. But it's really not an escalation. It is the natural result of a regime that has said for decades that it is going to and is invested in and has built facilities 300 feet under the ground to build nukes. You don't do that if you're building it for energy production. You're only doing that if you're trying to build nuclear weapons. So this needed to happen, and I'm glad to hear this sort of tone coming out of the White House.
All right, David Hamilton, answer me this. We had the B-2 bombers that dropped the bunker busters. They took off from Missouri, flew halfway around the world, dropped the bombs, turned around, came back. Why didn't they just launch from something closer, like Diego Garcia? Or certainly we had a base closer than Missouri.
We did, but I think this is a lot like boxing. Sometimes you poke at the tummy to hit the head, and it's a fake. We had a lot of misinformation and misdirection that we used to pull this off. And one has to give our military and our intelligence capabilities a lot of credit for how they pulled it off. They had a faux mission being flown from the Pacific, things like that. So, I think this was all part of a grand misdirection campaign, and it worked very effectively.
Well, real quick, David Hamilton, can you give me 30 seconds on what the fake mission was?
There were a number of reports of other B-2s being launched from different locations, kind of like we did with Normandy. We made people think that we were attacking through Belgium and things like that, and we didn't. So there were a number of assets that were launched around the world, and those were aimed to either confuse the Iranians on the timing or the direction for which things might come.
That is hilarious. That's going to be a movie with like Matt Damon or Ryan Reynolds or something coming up. Yeah. David Hamilton, National Security Economic Center at UNT. Thank you for your expertise.
Thank you.
Trump bombs Iran's nuclear facilities. Iran fires back right before the James Show started. The 5 military bases that were targeted, I don't think any of them actually had an actual strike. And one of the stark contrast between this conflict and the conflicts that you've seen your entire life. Some of you are old enough to remember Nam. You can go through the first Persian Gulf, second Persian Gulf, our little messing around in the Balkans for a while, Afghanistan, Iraq. I mean, think of how much we have been through. Black Hawk Down. What we didn't have through all those conflicts versus what we have now is memes. Memes. This is hilarious. This is comedic material for ninjas on the internet. Listen to how good this is. I don't know if, did AI make this?
Throw some rocks. Tell the Ayatollah gonna put you in a box. Old Uncle Sam's getting pretty hot. Time to turn Iran into a parking lot.
All right. Now for the, thank you very much, AI singers. For the kids in the back seat, or if you're hanging out with your dad and he's making you listen right now, you don't know. This is what we had. We're going to go back. Back in my day, we didn't have good old AI parody songs. We just had some old goofy politician who looked like a human Q-tip sing it on the spot a cappella.
Old Beach Boys song, Bomberan. Bom, 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 bom. Anyway.
We were savages. We were absolute savages back in the early 2000s, drinking out of water hoses, printing out our directions on MapQuest. No iPhones. Mike in Louisville, you're on WBAP. Go.
Hey, James. So, first off, that song was actually made in the 80s. That was back in the Reagan era, so it wasn't created by AI. Two, you talked about a diversionary tactic. They actually launched 9 B-2s. They all were heading west. 2 of them continued flying west as a diversionary. 7 of them did a U-turn and headed east.
Wait, where did it come from?
It came out of Whitman Air Force Base.
Where's that?
Was that in Wyoming, where the B-2s are stationed? So basically, half the fleet launched. They've got 20 of them, and they put 9 of them in the air.
But only from that one spot, because David Hamilton made it sound like we launched some other B-2s from other locations.
No, I believe they all came out of Whitman Air Force Base. We supposedly have some in Diego Garcia. I'm not sure how accurate that is. I thought they were all sitting at Whitman.
Yeah, I saw the Diego Garcia speculation myself, but dude, I have no military background. You can probably tell by me talking because you're over here saying Whitman Air Force Base like we're all supposed to know what that is. Remember, a lot of us are civilians. We don't know this stuff, Mike, so I appreciate you calling. So since you actually do know more than me, let me pick your brain a little bit. So they have to fly all the way from America in the middle of the heartland to the pretty much the other side of the planet. How many times do they have to refuel while they're up?
Probably 3 refuelings, and it was a round trip that took 36 hours.
Yeah, so 3 each way, so it's 6 total, or just one?
No, 3 total.
Oh, so like at the halfway point, right before or after they drop the bomb, and then again at the halfway point?
Yes.
So where do those planes launch from? We have, Germany Air Force Base or something?
So those are KC-135s that are probably doing that. We have those stationed all over the world.
All right. Well, I just remember connecting to those when I was playing Top Gun on Nintendo. So, I mean, I'm pretty much as experienced as you are at that.
Okay, that's good. I mean, if you flew a simulator, you obviously flew the airplane. So
yeah, I'm obviously making fun of myself. All right. So now tell me, as a layman, what don't I know about this mission that I would think is cool?
What don't you know about it?
Right.
Well, they're up there for 36 hours. So where'd they go to the bathroom? Where did they sleep? Did they stay awake for this whole time?
Yeah, so my assumption is they slept in shifts?
Yeah, so they've got actually sleeping quarters in the B-2. So they have a bed that they can actually sleep in, and they have basically a porta potty in there that they're pooping in.
Yeah, so it's like a tour bus.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right, fun stuff. I find that the logistics of this just way over my head and kind of fascinating, so I appreciate your insight. Mike in Louisville. I got time for one more. Let's do Jay in Dallas. Hey, Jay in Dallas, you're next up on WBAP. Jay, go.
Yes. I I've been listening to you. I respect your conversation and everything. But one thing I want everyone to understand, that also they are a B-2 bomber station in Wichita, Kansas. Another thing is, a lot of people forget we went to a war which actually lasted 20 years for weapons of mass destruction, which we never found. And number 3 is, I'm hoping he is not getting us in a war that veterans has not even been compensated from Bush 1 and Bush 2 already. There's consequences for every one action, and you have to understand when you're dealing with a country that's willing to die, not just for their beliefs, but they want to die for religious purpose. And I'm hoping this is not going to lead to a ground war, because in any military operations, if you know this from military history, if you can't defeat them in the air, you're going to defeat them on the ground. Thus, you're going to put the United States in a situation where we have to go back in on the ground again.
I think I agree with that last part. I don't. In fact, I don't know anybody who wants a ground war, hopes a ground war, or is really indifferent to a ground war stepping off. I think if it makes you feel any better, even the most war hawkish among us is not asking for ground troops. In fact, squeamish about ground troops.
Okay, but Israel has always been an ally to us, and which is understandable. But people have to understand, you have veterans that was in previous wars that not getting compensated due to those.
All right, I think we got it, Jay. I'm just out of time. Okay, I got to take a break here.
Well, I just want people to understand that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
No, and I'm happy to hear from someone who thinks that they disagree, but I think we agree on pretty much 90% of what you're saying. I don't think anyone's flipping about the well-being of our veterans and they should be compensated. I don't think anyone wants a ground war, but I hear like a lot of hesitation in your voice. No, I think we're pretty much on the same page. But will it be an off-ramp so both sides can end the hostilities and save face, declare a victory? Because look, the Iranian mullahs would like to be able to look at their people and not have to say, yeah, we're just going to back down and not do anything about that nuclear strike. No, they're going to retaliate. They're going to say it was a wild success. We killed thousands of Americans and they learned their lesson. And then the people will be like, we don't believe you, but I guess you're still going to be in power. So I think that might be best case scenario. Do I think all the hostilities are done? No. Because what we really have to look at after this is, will Iran continue to be the butthead that funds terrorism, whether it's Hamas, whether it's Hezbollah, whether it's ISIS in Syria, whether it's the Arab Spring and Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt and Libya, whether it's the Houthi rebels in Yemen. These guys have been a problem pretty much everywhere. And if you can solve for this one variable, so many other dominoes are going to fall. And I'm not saying we're going to have world peace, but one of the big stains against world peace right now is these guys. How many conflicts are these guys funding? Are they the ultimate backstop of? Also, these are the guys that primarily ruin it when we try and run sanctions on North Korea or China or Russia because they sell them their oil. They don't care about our sanctions. So when we try to cut off Russia from after the Ukraine war, fine, they'll just get their oil from Iran. They'll get the oil from China or Iran via China. So they're just been a big pain in the butt. And really, of all of the people who are adversarial to us, they're worse than I would say even China or Russia is as far as funding terrorism and killing our soldiers and attacking Israel and all that stuff. 800-288-9227. Maybe I'm just a little too optimistic. Walter, Grand Prairie, you're on WBAP. Walter, go.
I'm doing fine. First off, I want to let you know I was in Navy during the Vietnam era, and we've had trouble with Iran for years. That song you played is by Vince Vance and the Valiants, and we should have wiped them out long ago. I'm glad Trump did what he did, and I support him 100%. I'll leave you go with those comments, and you have a good day.
So you want to know a little trivia? My parents' first date was to go see Vince Vance and the Valiants in Juarez, Mexico. It's not what you would have guessed. And then I was personal friends with Vince Vance and the Valiants when I lived in New Orleans. He listened to my radio show. I went to some of his events, and he went to some of my events. And I've actually seen him with his hair down. You're not going to believe that. I have seen him with his hair down. And he went splitsies on a recording studio up in Farmers Branch like 20 years ago. I had met him then, too. And when I saw him in New Orleans, he remembered me. Stephen Carrollton's next. Is this the Stephen Carrollton?
It is. Hello.
Oh, man. Hey, I was wanting to talk to you tomorrow when we do the weed bill getting vetoed, so you have to call back then. But your thoughts on the Iran bombing?
Well, I sent you a DM, your DMs on X, just to correct some of the information that a couple of the callers gave earlier. But Whitman, I guess first off, Whitman Air Force Base is not in Wyoming. It's in Missouri. First thing. And the second thing I heard him say was about the B-2s flying and they split off and did this and did that. Well, from what has been reported so far, what actually happened was they sent a bunch of B-2s west first. They sent them west first to Guam because that's where they were planning or saying they were planning to launch off from. But then they sent 3 more east directly into the heart of the fire, which is how they got in that 15-hour time frame and dropped the bombs and flew right back. I thought that was kind of important to hit. I know we, try to get the best information. But also they had KC-135s doing the refueling, but they also had there was another the KC-46, the Pegasus, doing the aerial refueling also. I don't know if I think this is going to be all, though. I'm almost 100% sure that we've got some more stuff to drop in Iran. I don't know if this is going to end up in World War III or not. It seemed like it was nice and fair. They were like, hey, we're going to bomb you back. We're just calling you and let you know. And we're going to. That was kind of cool, but I'm worried. I really am. I'm worried.
Well, what is your worst case scenario? We're not going to put boots on the ground in Iran. They can't invade us, even if they wanted to. How bad could this get in your view?
Well, these sleeper cells are real. We know that. We already know that this isn't hey, by the way, we bombed them and now we see sleeper cells moving. Now, we've known the sleeper cells, the Iranian sleeper cells have been in the United States for years. As a matter of fact, there have been houses that have sold recently that the neighbors, when the real estate agent, this is personally from our personal knowledge, but the real estate agent was trying to get information about the house, was asking around, and it turns out a bunch of people, or nobody really lived in the house, but a bunch of people were seen going in and out of these places, and the security codes for the house was 0911, and there were fresh paint. There's a lot of, the point is, and this is right here in Texas. This isn't all over the place. This is right here in Texas where we are aware that these things exist. So my fear is not necessarily that they're going to, send bombs.
Well, let's talk about that.
Bombs to the bases.
Let's talk about that next. Thank you very much. This is the great Stephen Carrollton. You can find him online. Big, bad, black conservative. Is that correct?
That's me.
I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM, WBAP.
The James Show Podcast.